Hey, welcome back. It's Sunday morning, April 16th, 2023. It's not even 9 o'clock in the morning yet. We're here live on the Tomb of Terror. And let's see what's going on. Yesterday I was going through some older comics. Oh, look at this. I found this photocopy. This would look great framed. Look at these ads. More thrills than ever. The new 1937 Harley Davidson. I've got so many things that have just been printed off that would look great in frames. So all kinds of stuff around here. Here's some... Are these collectible yet? These Weekly World News. Giant sea serpent washes ashore. These are, National Enquirer in the 60s was very graphic and had horrible pictures of beheadings and violence. And by the 70s, when I was a kid, my mom would buy the National Enquirer, much to my embarrassment, and the Tatler and the Globe whenever she was at the supermarket. I think on Mondays when they came out, along with 2 copies of the TV Guide, one for upstairs, one for downstairs. But she would buy, those gossip rags, And by then, National Enquirer had tamed itself down. And then I think by the early 2000s, National Enquirer had become kind of sort of respectable because it actually broke a lot of stories and they actually turned out to be true. But Weekly World News didn't even give an S. They just made up stuff and just knew that people were buying it. Hipsters were buying it because they thought it was funny. So they just wrote funny stories and it became kind of like The Onion. And I like how they put the world's only reliable newspaper, which is probably actually true. Because, I believe this story more than I believe the stuff in the New York Times. But anyway, this is from... I'm actually becoming more cognizant. The dementia is fading because I'm starting to remember my atomic magnifier for this show. And so this is from November 28th, 2005, which is like 20 years ago, man, almost. So anyway, that's that issue. I've got these all over the place, man. Are UFOs abducting cows? Before, after, they're all up in that ship. And they started doing like the British tabloids, the bikini girl, inside. That one was from, do people buy these on eBay? I wonder if there is a collector's market for these things. March 13th, 2006. Back in the 90s, my friend ran this record store in Dallas called 14 Records. His name was Big Bucks Burnett. He also ran the Mr. Ed fan club and the Tiny Tim fan club. Big Bucks Burnett was an interesting character. Jimmy Page would fly him out to stay for a week in his castle that I think was owned by Aleister Crowley or something. And then he'd be back in his little record store. And one time he got a whole stack of 1960s National Enquirers and was selling them, and they were amazing. I've shown them to you before on previous episodes, but there are a lot of great stories he had. Like, Tiny Tim, he would have this music festival called Edstock in honor of Mr. Ed. And then he also had one for Tiny Tim I think it was called Tiny Palooza. And Tiny Tim would come to town. And one time Tiny Tim came to town, to Denton, where his shop was at that time. And Tiny Tim was very romantic. And he fell in love with this girl that was probably college age, that was a friend of Big Bucks Burnett. And he just wrote her all these love letters, and it became the love of his life. And it was unrequited. I mean, she loved him as a musician and everything. There's all kinds of stories. I don't remember them all. It would be cool if I brought Big Bucks Burnett on as a guest sometime. And I got to get my friend Randy on here sometime. I haven't talked with him in probably a month. Here's another copy because he can tell you stories about music, and he was there at the Longhorn Ballroom at the famous Dallas first appearance of the Sex Pistols when they played in a country western club, and the audience was completely confused. He was there. He knew Alex Chilton, Ronnie Dawson, and Gene Rambo. These rockabilly musicians would come to his house and just jam in his house, and it was just, you just drop by, and it's like these people that are famous, at least to us, are there in his house. And what else kind of cool? And he was an early comic book collector. He's the guy that gave me his Avengers collection, but he's got all the early, he had all the run of X-Men back to issue 1, and all Spider-Man going back to the single-digit issues. And so, because he's, how much older is he? I guess he's about 7 years older than me. Those are important 7 years, because he was like class of 76. I was class of 83, high school graduation. So that means he was a kid in the 60s. And I was born in 65, so I wasn't aware much of the 60s. I remember a few things in the 60s, like I remember going to Hemisphere, the big World's Fair in San Antonio. I remember that. And Jim Morrison was around, walking around Hemisphere at some point. I wonder if we saw him, but I wouldn't know who the heck he was. I remember just vague things about the 60s, but he was aware in buying comic books and getting them sent to him by what's the Robert Bell, So on the day of the moon landing, I don't even remember the moon landing. I'm sure it was on television. It meant nothing to me at age 4, but he would have been, what's 7 plus 4? Let's see, 8, 9, 10. He would have been 11. So he could have cared less about the moon landing, because he told me he had just gotten a big box from Robert Bell of all these early 60s Marvel comics. So he was reading those, and it was far more impressive than the moon landing, which you barely see anything anyway. I still don't understand how I can barely, sometimes the cell phone signals are so horrible, when you just leave your house. And yet the President Nixon was talking to people on the moon with like a phone like I've got back here, these antique phones. I don't know, but I'm not going to question it. Here's another issue of Weekly World News. We'll get into some comics. This is some magnifier. Oh, Drew the dog is here, by the way. I'll have you know, licking my elbow, because my elbow's all dried out, and my wife says I'm supposed to put lotion on. Do you guys use lotion? I never even was aware of lotion. I just took a shower with soap, dried myself off. But these women tell you, well, you're supposed to use lotion. Don't you know that? It's like, what guy uses lotion? But she says everybody does. Really? I didn't ever know that. There's a lot of things I don't know. It's like I'm from another planet, It's like Mork and Mindy, she's explaining Earth customs to me. I don't know. Anyway, why UFOs come to Earth? Speaking of space aliens. World's clumsiest man. Man, I thought that was me. See, they used aliens a lot. Inside Area 51. Look at this giant Bigfoot crossword puzzle. This is for people in nursing homes that have a lot of time on their hands to do a crossword puzzle like that. I find sometimes these crossword puzzles, my dad would buy these magazines of crossword puzzles, and after he retired, he would work through them, and it's like, how did he know these words? I've never heard of these words that somehow my father knew. But he would work through these crossword puzzles to keep his mind sharp. World's strangest UFO discovered. Oh, and here's the sun. I'm a teenage werewolf. Braces on my fangs. Yeah, you gotta look up the song by the Cramps. I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Great song. She predicted the 1989 San Francisco quake within 11 minutes. And her name is, speaking of psychics and UFOs and angels talking to you, David Wilcock was on last Saturday. He hadn't done a live broadcast on YouTube in a year. Last Saturday he was on, and today he's coming back on. Today it's at 3 o'clock. Look up David Wilcock here on the amazing YouTube channel. David Wilcock, 3 o'clock. I'll be watching that live. So join me with that. Okay, so fantastic. What else we got here to entertain you? We'll look at comic books in a minute. Also, we'll talk about my new program that is not actually on YouTube. It's something on DVD that you can order. And I've made 5 episodes so far. Each episode is 2 hours long. What I'll do is I'll put some on the TV, and I'll kind of scan through and kind of show you what's on each episode. So a bunch of people, or several people, have put down in the comments below, I'd like a copy. It's like, well, which one do you want? And I don't know what is a proper price. See, I'm thinking if I have these, and if they sell well enough, because during the summer, I won't be working, and this extra job that keeps things somewhat more comfortable. Well, actually, I guess I could somewhat. Anyway, I mean, I've got my retirement income, and my wife gets a little bit, but, it's real hard to squeak by on just that. So there may be a couple of months where if this TV show I'm making called Tomb of Terror on disc, if it takes off, then that might help us, stay incredibly fat, because otherwise I might lose weight. And we went to a restaurant last night, and she said, while we were waiting to be seated, this elderly man was just staring at you. And I thought, and I didn't notice it because I'm oblivious. She said, the guy just kept staring at you. And it's like, really? And it's like he didn't really look happy. It says it might be because you look out of place, because she said you kind of look like a horror host, like Vincent Price or something. And I had a black leather jacket and a Wolverine shirt on. I don't know what. It's like, gosh, I don't know. Maybe I look strange. Maybe it's just shocking how fat that man is. Here's Flintstones stand-up dolls, not wind-up dolls. Look at this great graphics on this box. Oh, this music, I don't know if you're hearing this music. It's from Atticus Jazz. Atticus, Atticus Jazz. It's on YouTube. They play great 1920s music. Oh man, I wouldn't know how to begin. It's just a hodgepodge of stuff in here. These are all paper, just made out of paper. But the actual Flintstones figures are cardboard. These actually really should be on display. Actually, let's see, who else? Do they have all of them? Here's Barney Rubble. And Betty Rubble. Yeah, this is what little girls would do. So here you got an outfit for Betty. You have little tabs that you put around her, and she has a new outfit. Look, she even has a weapon. Man, I never saw the girls carrying weapons in the show. This is for those winter. No, that goes the wrong way. That must be for some commercials on YouTube. When did they start putting commercials on YouTube? It's a commercial for that horrible new Peter Pan movie. Looks horrifically bad. Um, um, I thought I'd do something new on YouTube and criticize Disney. Because no one else is doing it. No one else is pointing out the fact that Disney is turning out Drek. So I thought, I'll start a new trend. Speaking of new trend, let's look at some comic books like the EC new trend. Not that I have any of those. This must be an outfit to keep her warm in the cold winter nights. Yes, indeed. Well, that's enough of that. Let's get back to the comic books. Or do you want to look at the TV show first? Well, I'm recording this 20s music. Let's look at the TV show in a little bit. I just don't know what price to charge, and I don't want to gouge people. I mean, there's going to be a price for postage, and I don't know what it would cost us to mail a little disc. And could I mail it in a padded envelope? I guess I could. If I just wrote fragile on it. But I've got 5 of them. Each one's 2 hours long. So that's 10 hours of entertainment. So if they were sold for $20 each, including postage, it sounds high to me, but I think if someone else had produced a disc like this, I would be really thrilled with, I think I'd pay that. But I don't know, maybe it should be $15. But then I've got to take into effect, I've got to go to the post office. It takes me 2 hours to record each disc. So it's like that's time that I can't watch regular shows on my television, at least not on this floor. So I don't know. Of course, I'm thinking $20 a disc, and then maybe a quantity discount, and that's including postage. And if you wonder, I'll show you in a minute, but if you wonder the format, it's just like the Hypnotic Eye. I was one of the original guys that did the Hypnotic Eye with Joe Riley. I was thinking about this in the shower. It's kind of like, okay, Joe Simon, and I'm not trying to compare myself to Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. But Joe Simon and Jack Kirby created Captain America together, right? And worked on it together during World War II in the 1940s. And then 20 years later, Kirby's doing Captain America on his own. Then another decade passes, and he's doing Captain America completely on his own, right around the bicentennial year, around 1976, when Kirby came back and they just gave him Captain America, and he wrote and penciled and inked. I think he did everything. Didn't he ink it too? I mean, it was completely his thing. But if you think about it, about 30 years have passed since the Hypnotic Eye. Joe Riley, unfortunately, has passed on. So it's kind of like Jack Kirby. I'm not saying I'm Jack Kirby, but it feels like you're watching a Hypnotic Eye episode. I just don't have the puppet to, but I could create something, to give it a, But so far, it's just a compilation of music and cartoons and movie trailers and old commercials, and it's highly entertaining to me. Maybe I'm the only one that'll be entertained by it. But yesterday, when we left off, we were looking at Funny Animals, and then we looked at Leave It to Beaver, and let's see, where was I? Oh, we were here. Look at this. Purchased from Duncanville Books. Ben Bowie and his Ben Bowie. See, the problem is David Bowie screws up everybody. So this is Jim Bowie created the Bowie knife, but there's David Bowie, and some people say, well, Jim Bowie. No, he's Bowie. So Ben Bowie, is he related to Jim Bowie? possibly. Anyway, it's this is obviously marketed to people that like Davy Crockett, because it's got the coonskin cap and all that. Let's open this up. This came from the incredible Duncanville Books, which I can't go to anymore because they're 11 hours away. But then 11 hours away is also high crime, and who knows what other horrors are back in the old country where I came from. This beautiful painting, man, that's great. Should be in the Louvre. And this ad for 7-Up. This is from the 10-cent era. Again, I'm impressed at my efficiency. Got this right here. It says, Dell comics are good comics. Let me see what. May, July 1958. Number 15. Dell. Some people would consider it an advantage. I consider it a disadvantage. Dell didn't really have advertisements in the interior. It was straight art. But I love advertisements. I was talking about this with Paulo last night. It's like the ads are half the fun. But this was a company that really only had an ad on the inside back cover and one on the back. Everything else is, they even have a little feature here on the Delaware Indians on the inside front cover. So some of the fun is gone when you don't have lots of ads, because some of those ads were so much fun. Ben Bowie. Okay, looks like I've got a little section here of Western comics. I don't remember what the blue dot means. Duncanville Books, they price everything with dots. And I believe, but I'm not 100% sure, the blue dot might have meant this is a $2 comic. I don't think this was a $5 comic. Ooh, this has the old comic smell. For those of you out there that know the smell. Look, they got a classy painting on the back. That is that a Remington? Yeah. On the Southern Plains in 1860 by Frederick Remington. My old friend that passed away, Tom Renoni, he when I first met him when I was in college, we'd go over to his parents' house where he lived at the time we were in college. And there were Frederick Remingtons on the wall and Norman Rockwell paintings on the wall, because his father was a prominent dentist and he had collected these paintings over the decades. And he ran an art gallery and specializing in Western art. And that's how I knew about, I think his name is Frank McCarthy, that did the Western art, but he also did all those great posters for movie posters in the 60s for the Dirty Dozen and the James Bond posters like Thunderball and Danger Diabolic and Diabolic, whatever. He did all those posters with all the explosions, very distinctive art for that time. Anyway, he started buying Norman Rockwell paintings and stuff in the 50s, and people in the art world made fun of him and said, "You're ridiculous buying this illustrator art." They considered art that was produced for commercial reasons, just to put in a magazine or as a magazine cover. That was considered low class. You want high art that was made to be put in a gallery. And so, but he proved them wrong, because ultimately they all came around and realized that Norman Rockwell was a great artist. Anyway, this is what we're dealing with here. This book has some great art. This book may not have any advertisements. Interesting. Why would you, as a publisher, not have any advertisements? Dell is I wonder why Dell didn't have many advertisements. Today is episode 713. There used to be a guy that would come on my show a lot, and there was an episode that we were going to do. The next episode was something 13, and it's like, I don't want to do that. It's an unlucky number. It's like, okay, well, I'll do a quick little 5-minute episode 413 or 513. I don't remember what it was. And then we can do 514, and you can come on. It's like, I don't know. A lot of buildings don't even have a 13th floor. That's like the elevator will go from the 12th to the 14th floor because people, I don't want to work on the 13th floor. I don't want to have an office on the 13th floor. Here's White Eagle Indian Chief. But it does have this wonderful juicy fruit ad on the back. The Secret of the Toltecs. I mean, the art is not stellar. I mean, you can tell what's going on, but it's almost like coloring book art. But the paintings on the cover, this one's a little fragile. This one feels a little bit like a pulp, very fragile. This is a Turok Son of Stone. I thought I showed you this yesterday. This is 10 cent Turok. When Turok was still with Dell, Turok later moved to Gold Key. I've got all the... Why is this here? Why isn't this with my other Turoks? It's a good question. I should probably move this to another box with all my Gold Key and Dell comics. In fact, I should move all these. I think I have them here because they're 10 cent comics in this box. This box that has this on it. I think I'm putting my 10 cent era comics in here because it feels good to have them all together. Comics from this time period. I don't have many comics from this older time period, unfortunately. Not because I don't love them, because I never could afford them, and the stores that I went to never had them. Here's one of those great Charles Biro comics. He puts his name big. There's an interesting story behind him, but anyway, these comics sold incredible numbers, more than 6 million readers monthly. Comics today hardly sell anything, honestly. First of all, people don't read. Magazines in general, publications don't sell, but kids especially don't read because they have video games, and I don't know how comics still survive. I think they're just propped up because they're all potential intellectual property to be turned into movies and TV shows. And here is Fiction House comic, Fight Comics. Senorita Rio, Spy Sleuth, Risk Unlimited, Tiger Girl, and many others. Yeah, these Fiction House comics always have these wonderful covers, and a lot of times the covers are faded, not because of sun exposure, but because of, I guess, the dyes and the ink fade from that particular company. It's kind of like photographs. If you have a photograph from 1959, it's still in its color. It probably still looks bright as it did then. But if you have a photograph from 1974, it's going to be all faded because whatever whatever they were using in film processing, whatever they were using in that era, those pictures all are faded and look depressing, actually. Here's Fight Comics from it's number 80, the Tiger Girl. Now this great cover, almost you can see where Dave Stevens gets his drawing style. I mean, that really does look like Dave Stevens' art. Dave Stevens was so great. He was just like a man out of time. That some people are just come along and they're such incredible prodigies. Someone like I put Dave Stevens up there with Nikola Tesla. Here's Ghost Rider. Yeesh. Not a very good condition comic, but the cover is amazing. Does it have a number on here? I don't see it. Anyway, doesn't matter. Ghost Rider. See, this company, the colors don't fade. See that beautiful red? The spine's like completely gone on this comic. But, if I get a comic wall, this might be on it, probably, because it's just such a beautiful image. Here's an Atlas, which later became Marvel. Jungle Action. Always loved Jungle Girl comics. Just don't have enough of them because I can't afford them, but trust me. This, I forgot I had this. G.I. Joe number 35. Now, G.I. Joe was one of the first Golden Age comics I ever saw in person. I just love this. You got the nurse tied up. You got this evil North Korean. But the thing, G.I. Joe, it's G.I. Joe there, always has a smile on his face. He's always having fun, strangling and shooting whole giant squads of soldiers at the same time. He's always smiling. This comic is really actually funny. It's intentionally funny. He's just showing. It's showing how much fun war is, which I don't know if that's the best lesson to teach to little kids, but it's like this guy. It's like it's playing football. He's having fun. That's a great cover. It might be it could be a Norman Saunders cover. I don't know. I'm just guessing. When something's great, I'll just credit it to some artist that I love. Yeah, it should have a backing board. I know that. At least it's in Mylar. Why do I have an issue of Radioactive Man in here? This really should be in another old spot. Put this back here to refile it. Okay. This is a high dollar book that I bought for probably $20 years ago. Ghostly weird stories. Yeah, I need to get a backing board for this. This is probably one of the an ad on YouTube. This is probably one of the more valuable comics I've got. This is pre-code horror. Look, chewing gum helps you lose 5 pounds because they put uranium in it and you'll just turn into a skeleton. I'm just kidding. Oh, here's a comic. Not bad, because I probably didn't have any Golden Age bags. Racket Squad in action. In the Frederick Wortham book, Seduction of the Innocent, he talked to all these juvenile delinquent kids and juvenile delinquent detention center, wherever they put really bad criminal kids, and they said, "Do you read comic books?" "Yeah." And so you figure, okay, so therefore comic books cause juvenile delinquency. But if you'd ask just a normal, nice kid that goes to Sunday school, "Do you read comic books?" and he would have, or she would have said yes too. So does that mean that comic books cause you to go to Sunday school? Because every kid, it was just like chewing gum. Everybody read comics back then. Anyway, some of the kids would say that the covers like this were headlight covers. They described women's breasts as headlights, and some of these comic book companies would make them very prominent like that, thrusting out at the person on the newsstand. And they knew what they were doing. They were trying to appeal to prurient interest. I mean, I mean, to a certain degree, as much as we love these old comics, Frederick Wortham was right. They were pushing the boundaries real far, especially the imitators of EC. This guy, Dr. Neff, smashing the spook show racket. Doesn't he look like George Burns a little bit? Like a young George Burns. Anyway, Snakes Alive! Now this just has a cool looking feel to it. Racket Squad in action. Even the smartest crooks can learn that accidents will happen when they try the phony claim game once too often. Okay, they're people trying to bilk the insurance company. So they're going after dishonest people here in the Racket Squad comic. Look at this great page here. The people that made these comics weren't like noble people that just wanted to entertain children and help them learn to read. They were people, just borderline mob people that just whatever sells, whatever we can get away with, we'll do. They were. I'm not talking about the artists and the writers. I'm talking about the publishers. They were they were not necessarily good people. I mean, they knew that they had hired a nut for the Wonder Woman. They knew that what was in that Dr. Marston that created Wonder Woman. They knew what he was into in his private life. They knew what he had in his comic, but it was selling. So yeah, let that nut keep just as long as he doesn't go too far. As long as that comic sells. Here's this is a reprint label. As I was looking at a Dennis the Menace imitation yesterday, Tippy Terry or something, and it was a reprint. So this is must be. Let's see what's inside this. And then I think we need to look at the TV for a little bit. Oh, I always love this ad with this weird looking guy that looks like a light bulb head. Don't let them call you skinny. Okay, I'm gonna need the reprinted in 1964. Okay, this is 1964 reprints of earlier comics, The Spirit. So, 64. I mean, it looks like an earlier comic, but this was actually on the stands when the Beatles were first appearing in the U.S. So, but inside you've got 1940s Spirit comic strips. So it's like 20-year-old comics that have been reprinted by this company, Super Comics. And then I think a couple of years later, after this, 64, maybe around 66, Harvey tried to reprint The Spirit legitimately with new covers done by Will Eisner. And that went for a few issues. It was a beautiful looking comic. I think it only went 2 issues. And then The Spirit lay dormant until an underground comic company tried to put out several issues of The Spirit in maybe around 72, but they put a little bit of naughtiness on the cover so it would sell to hippies and head shops. That didn't work, and then Warren started a Spirit magazine and added it to their lineup with Creepy Eerie Vampirella and Famous Monsters. There was a Spirit comic, and that must have started about Did that start in 74 or 75? I bought it when I was in San Antonio, and I lived there between 73 and 75. And then, and that went for a few years, and then Kitchen Sink took up the numbering. But I thought the Warren looked so much better because Will Eisner wouldn't have agreed with me. He didn't like what Warren did to his original art. They added shading to it and gray tone, and it was I think, Richard Corbin, and I loved his shading and his airbrush technique. Richard Corbin was adding that to the Will Eisner original art, which I thought was magnificent. But when Kitchen Sink took over the Spirit, they just published the original art flat the way it was on the original art. But that art wasn't ever meant to be seen in black and white. It was meant to have color added to it for the Sunday newspaper supplement, which is where the Spirit originally was printed. So that color would have added the shading to it. But since Warren was printing it in black and white, that shading, I think, helped. Anyway, that's just my personal opinion, you know. In the Marine Corps, Lee Harvey Oswald was nicknamed Oswald the Rabbit because of this character. A character that's now completely forgotten, which I think was originally created by the Disney Company, and then somehow it wound up in Walter Lance's hands, and then I think it went back to Disney. I'd have to do a quick little bit of research about that. Maybe you can tell me down below. But I could have sworn Oswald the Lucky Rabbit started as a Disney deal. All right. So I've got to stop this to show you what I've been doing. Here's some VHS cassettes I've got to take down to the basement. Here's the Chesterfield Kings. I know you think of that as a cigarette brand, but they were actually a really great, was it in the 80s? Yeah, it was in the 80s. In the 80s, there was a revival of 60s garage rock, and this is just a collection of their appearances on television. Ford classics of the 50s. What else do we have here? Classic car commercials. What is this? Early warning. Oh, this is this is a Christian film about the apocalypse. You see, it's gospel films. A fully dramatic feature film which gives a glimpse at incredible events that may well be taking place today, events which have perilous significance when viewed in the light of God's prophetic word. To newspaper reporter Sam Jensen, it's a high-adventure, death-defying pursuit of a once-in-a-lifetime news story. His investigations have linked currency devaluation, global computerization, credit control, laser ID imprints, and survivalist camps to the One World Foundation, whose plans are to control the world. To Jenny Marshall, a member of a Bible study group studying the end times, it means much more. To you, Early Warning can be an effective film to reinforce the meaning of our position in history as we move a step closer to the beginning of God's final judgment. And this sounds like, oh shoot, that's not good. I took it out of the box, box, and look at that. This plastic fell out. So this was printed on some brittle plastic. Oh, the cassette's been smashed. I wonder if that was done in the move. Regardless, people collect VHS just for the boxes. This movie is probably on YouTube. In fact, I'll check as soon as we get in between songs. I bet that's the case. I've got the Kolchak series on DVD, but this is when it was on VHS as part of a Columbia House. I got this at Half Price Books. It has 2 episodes, Bad Medicine and The Energy Eater. Kolchak the Night Stalker. Here's some... The Fuzztones were another one of those bands that recreated the 1960s garage rock experience. This is them live in Europe. This is put together by their fan club. So I'll put that down And the Fuzztones actually did shows with Screamin' Jay Hawkins. So this is they were like his backup band. So this is some great stuff. I haven't forgot I owned these. Here's Creatures That Time Forgot, the Fuzztones. I wonder if all this stuff's on YouTube also. I don't think I've ever looked the Fuzztones up on YouTube. I haven't even hardly thought of the Fuzztones since the invention of YouTube. Okay, let me get this Roku remote. So I've been recording this music. What I do is DVD-Rs. The recordable discs, you can record on them one time. They're not erasable. And you're going to record in different speeds. You can record in XP, which only gives you an hour. You can record in SP, which gives you 2 hours. Then it's like VHS. You get a 4-hour speed and a 6-hour speed. But if you remember VHS, when you record in 6 hour, the picture's not that good. I mean, it's watchable, but the sound never faded on a VHS. The VHS in 6 hour, if you're recording from a record, it still sounded perfectly wonderful. So some friends of mine and I, back in the VHS days, sometimes we put together, you make a mixtape on an audio cassette. It's not going to be longer than 90 minutes, right? But I should have stopped it there. And so you could make a 6-hour music collage and play it at a party in lieu of having a DJ, and it would just 6 hours of music playing your selections in your order. Well, you can do that on DVD-R. The problem with these machines, this is the machine I've got, Toshiba, and they work really well. SE-RO265. Okay, so this is the second one I've had. The first one finally crapped out after, it seems like a decade or more of using it. And so I got another one, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, from eBay that had barely been used or was almost never used. And so this is my second one. And I know they work well. I've had some... it seems like in the early days, when you first were able to make your own DVDs, I had a Panasonic. I didn't think it worked too well. And I had another brand. I think I had a Sony. I gave those away to my friend, Gerald. This one's always worked well. And I'm using verbatim discs now. I ran out. I had I get these spindles of discs about this high. And then I ran out. And we didn't even have money for me to get another spindle of discs. So I went through these other spindles that were in a big box in the basement, and I found, there's some discs that were never recorded on. Or I recorded on a little bit of the disc, so I wound up like, once you finalize the disc, it gives you the date that things were recorded, and it'll show this part was recorded in 2009, and this part was recorded in 2023. So... these discs are very durable and they last. I've been doing this for decades, and they're, they say, well, it'll go bad eventually. Maybe it will. It's not going to be during my lifetime. I'm an archivist. I don't know the best way to preserve anything. I don't think there is a way that's going to preserve anything, but I know that I don't trust YouTube. Things can be on YouTube, and I think, I'll record that tomorrow, and it'll be gone tomorrow. It'll be taken down for copyright reasons. It'll be taken down for political reasons, because YouTube is basically a Marxist communist platform. Okay, I'll stop recording there. Let's see, what are we doing here? Okay. All right. So, DVD-Rs. I record stuff insanely from YouTube, and I guess right now I'll show you what I'm doing. So you have an idea. Right now, you were mounted you were on this ladder here. I'm using the ladder as a tripod. I've got a ring light over there, and over here on the floor are all these spindles of DVDs. I'm trying to find some blank ones. I ran out, and my wife ordered a new spindle for me from Amazon, and it's supposed to get here Wednesday. So I have one disc left, and I have two. One, I'm recording this 1920s music here, and the other blank disc, I'm going to record David Wilcock today at 3:00. And oh, did you hear that cracking of my knees? I should hold the camera next to my knees when I stand so you can appreciate the cracking. Because otherwise I just look like a sissy every time I stand up going, ah, like a pirate. Okay. So, I'll give you an idea what I've been doing here. Let me set you down. Okay, put that there. Okay. So this is the Master of Tomb of Terror 5. So if you ordered one, I would record from that, your disc from that one. No, that's Tomb of Terror 6. There's already a Tomb of Terror 5. I stand corrected. I've actually done 6 episodes. That means I've already created 12 hours, a whole half of a day of entertainment for you. Which I'm sure I could have made a much more productive use of my time. But it's fun for me to make these collections. So that's Tomb of Terror 6. Okay. This one's 5. 4. 3. Here's 1, so where's 2? There's 2. Okay. So yes, I have 6 of them. Okay, so let's put this disc in, and I'll kind of, I guess I'll fast forward through it and kind of show you what's on each disc, because you may not want all the discs. You may just want particular episodes, although they're all pretty wonderful. Ugh. Means if someone orders 6 discs, my television's gonna be occupied recording for half a day. Oh well. Que lastima, what a shame. Okay, so let's see if I can mount the camera in such a way where you can see the television screen.